Many people outside the homeschooling community think homeschooling takes place only at home, in isolation away from others. This couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, there is an entire homeschool program that places the necessity for community as an integral portion of its objectives. In this episode, I'll be speaking with fellow homeschool mom Lisa Renee Clark. We'll discuss how classical conversations answers the need for community, and helps homeschoolers to understand how everything is connected. Tune in to learn how Classical Conversations has positively impacted Renee's homeschool. Renee has over 21 years of
Wow.
experience as a homeschool mom and still has another 5 years until the last of her six children graduates from high school. She and her husband Troy are leaders of the high school ministry at the church they attend, El Hacedor Juan
Mhm.
3:16. Hey, I speak some Spanish. All right. They are also impacting the community through their nonprofit organization, City, which stands for Computer Innovations for Today's Youth. And Renee also has a blog that I invite you to check out called reneelife.com. And I will post those links in the description below. Hi, Renee.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. This is such a pleasure and an honor to be joining you all today.
Yes. So I want to get right into it. What is classical conversations?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. Classical Conversations is a homeschool community, and they're not only here in the United States, but around the world on six continents. You can find, yes, on six continents, you can find classical conversation communities. And the reason that I say that we are a community is because we're all groups of families who have come together with the purpose of developing our children, and not only our children, but the parents themselves, because the parents are learning right alongside the children. And so, as a community, we're developing the skills, the tools of learning. We're developing and practicing becoming masters at the skills of discovery, so that wherever we may go in life, we can impact with the greatest greatest efficacy, if I can say that word, the most impactful wherever we are called to be, whether it's in science, agriculture, arts, entertainment, government, whatever it is. So it is a community of learners, not only students, it's a community of learners.
That's awesome. And just honing in on the term classical. What does the term classical mean in relation to classical conversations?
Okay, classical conversations was established to bring more to light how we, whether a child or an adult, was created to learn, and we all learn in stages. And those stages are the three primary stages are the grammar stage, the dialectic stage, and the rhetoric stage. And so you ask, well, what are those? Well, okay, as parents, we're raising our little ones. Think about when they first started talking and you're going around the house with them or you're out in the park. And what do? You point out things: car, TV, cat, dog, red, blue, tree. You are naming things. You are beginning to define objects in your world. And so that's the first stage of learning. It's naming, beginning to get those rudimentary definitions, those rudimentary descriptions of things in our world. And so with the grammar stage, a really important part of what we do in naming is that we also attend to details. Well, yeah, we see it's a dog, but what color is it? Well, tell me about the hair on the dog. Tell me, let's compare the size of this dog with another dog. We make comparisons. And so it ever unfolds because we're always asking more and more questions about the dog, more and more questions about the cat, more and more questions about the sun. Well, why do we only see it for a certain amount of time a day? Does the sun go and hide? Just all sorts of questions that lead us on a trail of discovery. And like, for example, I had mentioned about the sun, any questions that you might ask about the sun. Well, here in the context of the United States, we might not necessarily bring in folklore or fables, but we might ask, well, how do people in Malaysia, how do they relate to the sun? Or what do they say about the sun? Are there any folklore or any superstitions even about the sun? And so we look at all of these things that are in our world, and then we begin to ask questions about those same things in other contexts, other circumstances. We begin to make connections as we get more information about these things that are in our world. And then a child will naturally progress to the dialectic stage. Got lots of information about wars, information about people groups, information about times tables and maybe a little bit of science, and got all these bits of information that seem like they're unrelated. But as they naturally progress to the dialectic stage, they're wanting to see how all these bits of information are related. Wanting to see, well, how did this people group influence the decisions of another people group? Or these animals, they eat this amount of food. Well, how does it affect the food supply of another group? Again, wanting to see how all these bits of information are related. And so we go through this process again and again and again, getting the basic information, the basic terms that we can use in order to begin our conversation about whatever the topic may be. Because we have to know this animal that we're talking about, we have to have some basic terms that we can begin the conversation with. And then we begin to ask questions. And then once we've gathered a body of information, we're so excited about it. We can present what we have learned. Maybe we can present it in a song. We can present it in a PowerPoint. We can present it in an essay. We can do it in a play. There's so many ways that we can present in the rhetoric stage, which is the final stage where you begin to impart what you have received. And so those three stages, from the grammar, that's the basic rudimentary, where we're just beginning to learn the basics, to the dialectic, where we're beginning to see that all this random information, it really is not so random, it is connected. And then once we've made those connections, then we can go tell others what we have learned.
So I want to interrupt you real quick. So this reminds me of in teaching what we call scaffolding, where you're building upon basic knowledge or your prior knowledge,
Yes.
and then also following kind of what is called Bloom's taxonomy, where you start with the basic knowledge or facts, but then by the time you get to the advanced stages, you're able to evaluate and analyze and synthesize that information or apply that information in a unique way.
Yeah, that's it. That's it exactly. That's it
Okay.
exactly. And as I said, that with classical conversation, we are a community of learners, the parents as well as the students, and the same tools that I'm sharing with you, the same tools of learning, of paying attention to details, asking questions, seeing how things are related. I also, in learning new things, I take those very same tools and I put them to work to learn new things.
Very good. So the you spoke about community. How important is community in terms of classical conversations and in terms of learning?
The importance of community is that every person has a gift. Every person has something to impart to the rest of the community. And so in the atmosphere of community, and we meet once a week as a community, all the families gather together and we review the topics that we're focusing on. And with that, not only are we imparting, but we are also drawing out from each other. We're drawing out gifts, we're drawing out abilities, drawing out even greater questions, drawing out ideas, because that is the nature of the conversation. It not only leads the individual learner on a path of discovery, but draws things out of each other's heart that we didn't even know that that were in there, meaning that I didn't know I was interested in physics, because even in the younger ages, we do science experiments, we do physics, and we do chemistry, and we do all sorts of things. And a lot of parents find that they discover later on interests in learning and exploring different areas that they didn't even know were there. And so another benefit of community is the support. There have been so many times when difficulties at home, maybe an elderly parent needs particular attention, and the parents are not able to bring the child to meet on community day. Well, fine, we will gather up a carpool. You need somebody to cook meals for you while you go do your errands, or you've got doctor's appointments, or even this was some years ago. One of the moms, she had an illness, and she really was not able to take care of her family. So what did we do? We took care of her family. We took care of her home. We took care of her children. Any outings or anything that the community was doing, we were there to support. And so that's, I would say, support and discovery. And another thing is accountability. When you know that other moms, other dads as well, because we do have dads in our homeschool community, and the other students, they're going to be asking you questions. that is a strong incentive to review the work, to have those conversations at home, to play the games, to do the review games, to do those things at home. So those three things are definite cornerstones and important parts of what we do with classical conversations.
Yes, and I think that component alone is golden, because a lot of times, homeschool parents, when we first start out, what curriculum do I want to choose?
Yeah.
How do I do this? But with classical conversations, the curriculum and the community support goes hand in hand. You have a built-in group of moms and parents and other kids for your child to grow with and for the parents to grow with. And that's really important, because it's really easy to be isolated as a homeschool parent
Oh, yeah,
sometimes.
it sure is. It
So
really is.
that is very admirable.
Yeah, we love it, and it's very inspirational, because in our communities, it's such a mix. It's such a diverse mix. Not We have single moms, single dads. We have grandparents raising their grandchildren. We have people from around the world, literally, in our communities, and it's such a rich atmosphere for learning and discovery.
And that brings me to another point that I want to
Okay.
highlight for our listeners here,
Okay.
because a lot of times I think, when people hear classical conversations, they don't think of it as being diverse, and
Mhm.
they don't think of it as being necessarily like welcoming, because it lacks diversity. But I am so glad you said that, because that's a misconception.
It is a misconception, totally. It
Hmm.
is totally a misconception. I mean, we have, in addition to the people that I mentioned, we have moms who work full time. in the community. We have moms who are part-time. It is such a big, it's a wide range. You just have to see it. You just have to see it for yourself.
Right. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because if you are a homeschool parent and
Yeah.
you are considering curriculum choices and support, don't shy away from classical conversations,
Yeah.
because it has something potentially to offer you,
Yeah.
right?
It really.
Um, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my encouragement is just go on the website and put in your zip code for the community search, and contact the director of the community and just go and watch and get ready to be surprised.
Good. So, how have your children flourished through classical conversations?
Oh, I'm not gonna cry. I'm just letting you know in advance.
Okay.
But our six children, they have they have become um, very introspective in that they can look within themselves and see their own heart. And in seeing their own heart, and with the tools that we use with classical conversations of defining things and looking at relationships and considering other circumstances, influences in any particular issue, then that also, by the grace of God, has helped them be more compassionate and
Mm.
understanding of others.
And God knows we need compassion and understanding, right? And
Yes,
because
that
our society has become less compassionate in some
yeah,
ways.
it's wonderful. I hear from parents, from other parents, they'll our children will go off and participate in some event, and so many times parents will come back to me and say, wow, your kids are they're so helpful. Number one, they're very, very helpful. They know that they have a responsibility.
Mhm.
They're not there just to be waited on, just to be served. Our children are taught to serve. And that's another big part of community. We are taught to love each other and to serve each other. And so many times my parents will come to me and say, oh, he just jumped in there and did it. Others were standing back there watching and seeing what they should do. And no, your son, he jumped in there and did it. He did such a wonderful job. Or there was someone who, one of the students who isn't a normal part of our community at the event, and they were expressing that they were having some difficulty at home, difficulty working out some hard things in their life. And your son or your daughter went to them and shared their heart and really just and spoke some encouraging, uplifting words without being asked to do it. They took the initiative. And so
Wow.
that's the kind of fruit that we want to see from what we plant and sow into our children, that they are compassionate, that they take the initiative, they take responsibility, and they serve.
That sounds awesome. And service is a big deal to me as well, because that's a part of my homeschool mission. Is I
Yeah.
want my kids to learn how to serve within their community and serve other people. So this is awesome that classical conversations is a integral part of learning that. And
Yes.
then the last question I have is just to play devil's advocate, so to speak.
Okay.
And that is, what have been some potential difficulties with classical conversations, and how can a parent who is interested in going through the program manage these difficulties?
Okay. Some potential difficulties is um, one thing that we do run encounter with on a regular basis is parents who feel like they have to do everything, like they have to get everything on that list checked off. And it's just not like that. It is just not at all like that. Because what I'll again, you said you're playing devil's advocate. I'll throw this question out, I'll throw this scenario, circumstances out. So what? Everything on the list has been checked off. but there's been no heart connection. There, that's the main thing. There's been no heart connection. There's no real practicing of the tools of learning where you can take that same scenario and um, and follow a path that would lead you to investigate someone else's situation. So what? Yeah, you got all your math lesson done. You did the philosophy, you did the Latin, you've done your memory work, you got everything. Check, 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 check. But there's no grace about it. There's no humility about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we really haven't achieved the goal. The goal is not only to do the work, but at the same time, the purpose is to develop a character, a godly character, and godly principles, so that wherever you go, that you will be respectful, that you will be honoring, that you will display grace, humility, integrity, and yes, excellence. Certainly have a work ethic, an exemplary work ethic. And those things, it's not just things that you check off on the list. Those are things that come out of your heart. And so we're after cultivating the heart.
Good. So that leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
So that homeschooling parents know up front that classical conversations is rooted in the Christian faith, right?
Yes.
However, I spoke with you previously, and there are people of other faith, right, that participate.
Yeah, that's just part of our diversity. I mean, yes, the name is Classical Conversations, and in our in what we do, we are guided by Christian principles found in the Bible, and with that being our foundation, we welcome those of other faiths. We have Muslims and Sikhs and Buddhists in our communities. We even have atheists. Well, why is it we can have all these diverse groups in classical conversations? It's because we're cultivating and we're practicing using the tools of learning. We're practicing cultivating, becoming lifelong learners without limits. We're
I
practicing.
like that.
We're practicing the tools of discovery. This is something that I know about every person on this planet. Everybody is curious about something. And so with the tools that we use with defining and looking at relationships and making comparisons and circumstances, yes, this is what's happening now in this place, but how are there influences from outside that are impacting what we are experiencing? And how are the decisions, the decision-making process that we're going through, how is that having an outward ripple effect? And so with classical conversations and with classical education, we are practicing tools that allow us to answer those questions and then ask more questions and then answer those questions. And really, it really does enable us to be lifelong learners without limits. And so since that is the goal, since that's one of our main goals, of course we can have people from all these different groups and faiths and people of no faith, faiths that don't acknowledge the Creator at all. And for example, this is just a short list of some of the countries where you find classical conversations communities. And I said, we're in 6 continents, so like Argentina, and countries in Africa, and in Malaysia and Russia and Italy, all
Everywhere.
over. Yeah, literally
Yeah.
everywhere. So with that kind of a broad scope, of course, not everybody's going to be Christian.
Mhm.
And we're all welcome.
Well, that is awesome. That is amazing. And I think that does it. I mean, you have done a great job in really fleshing out classical conversations and what can be gained from it overall. what are the goals, and the inclusivity of it. So
Oh,
I love it.
yeah, that's wonderful. And another thing, one of your questions was what really drew me to classical conversations. And so, yes, we've been homeschooling now over 21, going on 22 years.
I know every time I hear, I was like, wow, that's a long time.
Still got 5 years to go. Well, okay, so in the early years, we were having success. I do not have a background in education, none whatsoever. So we started off with a curriculum that told us, do this for 20 minutes, take a break, do this for 20 minutes, take a break. It was laid out because I did not know what to do. And there was nobody around me that I knew to reach out to. So for several years, we stayed with that curriculum until I began to gain confidence and speak with more experienced moms. And so we were having success year after year. The evaluator who would review the work that the children had done, they said, yeah, they're doing great. They're doing great here. Supplement a little bit here just to strengthen them, practice this a little bit more. But we were having success year after year after year. But in my heart, even with the success, I knew that there was something missing. But I didn't know what the something was. And so I just kept praying on it. We're having success, but there's just something, something, something. And so after a number of years, and actually it was in 2014, a friend who knew a friend who knew a friend was in classical conversations. And when she told me about it, I, that's it. That's it. And how is it that I knew that there was something? Is because I had these 6 children, wide range of ages, literally elementary, middle, and high school. And I was trying to teach on all 3 levels
Oh.
all at once. And it was
Mhm.
just by the grace of God that we were getting it done, but it was a lot of work. And I knew long term, okay, having to go long term and graduate six children through high school, I knew that I needed to streamline the process.
Mhm.
And so when I found out about classical conversations, literally, I could see to the graduation of our 6th child. And it was still like another, at that point, about 11, 12 years away. I
So
could
it gave you
see,
hope.
yeah, oh yeah, it gave me hope. And I saw that if I just kept taking the steps, day after day, week after week, month after month, my 6th child would be graduated, and he would be capable for anything, equipped for anything that he would be called to. And so initially what attracted me was the streamlined process. I mean, I saw the whole thing laid out all the way to high school, because
Mhm.
I knew that our responsibilities as a family, our responsibilities in ministry, our responsibilities in ministry were only going to increase. So I needed this homeschool piece settled
Yes.
all the way to the end.
Right. And you
Yeah.
don't want we we want homeschool. It is a part of life. It is a way of life, but
Yes.
we don't want the nuts and bolts of daily like study and whatnot to just dominate our every waking moment either. And so
Yes.
that's important.
Yeah. That's what happened for us. Everything was laid out, and certainly the curriculum, year after year after year, it is ever evolving, ever developing. The CC curriculum from the earliest learners, age 4, all the way through challenge 4, which is a senior in high school, it is progressively expanded and flourished. It is not the same. And so that's one thing I really do appreciate about the executive staff at Classical Conversations. They're always looking for ways to ever improve. How can they more reflect the needs, not only of the learners, but needs the learners currently, but also into the future. They're very forward thinking in that way. And so as we were saying, we don't want our homeschool to just dominate our lives. And it did bring a peace. It brought a simplicity.
Mhm.
Yay!
Yay for simplicity,
Yay
right?
for simplicity. Yeah, it really, really did. And there's so many more tools that are available simply by being connected with the Classical Conversations community, much more than what we have time to explore here. And so it was also because of those tools that would carry us all the way through high school. That was another important thing as well, because I've seen so many families every year, they're changing curriculums. Every year they're changing communities. Every year they're just changing. And it's hard for them to gain momentum, and it's hard for their homeschool experience to have some stability, because they're just jumping around. And I understand we move and we flow and we ebb and we adjust and things like that. But for me, for the Clark household, the solidity, the firm foundation of Classical Conversations will carry us all the way to the graduation of our sixth child.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Renee, for sharing about Classical Conversations. I think this is going to help a lot of homeschooling parents and prospective
Yes.
homeschooling parents. I'm so glad we were able to chat today. Did you have any last words that you wanted to share or encouragement?
Okay. Yes, I want to encourage you. When I started, like I said, I had no background whatsoever with education. Even though I come from a line of generations of educators, I was not one of them. But I knew that if I was just persistent and consistent, that the bumps would smooth out and we would make progress. So my encouragement is to just stick with it. And if you have days when you feel like it's not working, it's okay to just put the books down and go to the park or go to the pool.
Yes.
Or, do school at the beach. I live in Florida, right,
Okay.
right by the beach. We with Classical Conversations, we can even get our work done at the beach. Why? It's those tools of learning. So it's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. Let your homeschool experience take on the face and the shape that your family needs it to in order to have success.
Those are wisdom words right there. Okay, thank you so much, Renee.
Don't forget to click like and subscribe to be notified of future videos. Also, don't forget to check out my website, www.aheartforhomeschool.com.